So you know that this unit is entitled Circles and Volume, and we have started talking about circles, and now we're going to be getting into different measurements of circles. Now, before we can get into the new stuff, we need to go back over the old stuff. So what you're seeing on the screen right now should not look completely foreign to you. We're looking at how to find the circumference and the area of a circle. So before we even get into that, I want to remind you that we use this number pi, okay? We're going to explore why pi exists and why we use it in finding the area and the circumference, but for right now, I just want to remind you that pi is approximated by the decimal 3.14. So probably when you were in middle school, you learned to use 3.14 in terms of pi. We don't do that in analytic geometry. Okay, if you look at any calculator, there is a pi button. Okay, that pi button is what you will always use. You never put in 3.14 for pi unless a problem specifically says to use it, and that very rarely happens. So you use the pi button if you're going to calculate it, or we do what's written in purple where it says leave your answer in terms of pi. This actually makes things a lot easier. So let's review the formulas real quick. Okay, so the circumference of a circle, you remember that that is the measure around the circle if you were to use a tape measure. So the circumference, we do pi times diameter, or we can use the other formula that is the same, that is 2 pi r. So I want to remind you that when you multiply the radius times 2, you're actually getting the diameter. We know that the diameter goes all the way across the circle. The radius goes from the center out. So the radius is half of the diameter. Now for the area, the formula is pi r squared. Now remember, when we're finding area, we're finding what it would take to completely cover the circle. So we take pi and we multiply that times the radius squared. So first, let's go ahead and find the circumference of this circle. It says to leave your answer in terms of pi. That means that pi is going to be in your final answer. So we know that the formula is circumference equals pi times diameter. Since I'm given the diameter, I'm going to use this one. So I plug in my diameter, c equals pi 6. Now the correct way to write this is to actually flip these. The number should always be in front of pi. So your answer, circumference, is equal to 6 pi. So rather than calculate out and do 6 times the pi button in the calculator, we're going to leave the answer in terms of pi and simply give 6 pi. Now finding the area, so we know that the formula is area equals pi r squared. So in order to find the area, we have to know the radius. In this case, that one's easy. Since the diameter is 6, that means that the radius is 3 centimeters. So area equals pi times 3 squared. Okay, so that means that the area is equal to 9 pi. So let's talk about units for a second. When we are doing circumference, our units are regular units, so it'd be centimeters. But when we're finding area, centimeters squared. Okay, you remember that from middle school. Because when you're finding the area, you're saying how many square centimeters. Centimeters that are 1 centimeter, or squares that are 1 centimeter all the way around, how many of those would it take to fill it up? Whereas the circumference is a straight measurement. So when you're finding circumference, it's regular, and when you're finding area, it's squared. Area of a square, rectangle, and parallelogram . So when we're using this, we have our formula of area equals base times height. That's the same formula for all of these. So let's say that all of these measurements are in centimeters. So area equals, for the parallelogram, our height is actually the straight up and down height, not the slant height. Okay, we can't use the slant height. So area equals base, which is 12, times height, which is 3. So that gives me 36 centimeters squared. For a rectangle, same thing. Area equals base times height, so 10 times 4, which gives me 40 centimeters squared. And then for a square, area equals base times height. Since we know this is a square, that means that even though they only give us one side as 6, we know they all are 6. So it's 6 times 6, which is 36 centimeters squared. And finally, the area of a triangle. Now remember, the formula is area equals 1/2 base times height. Again, the height has to be the straight up and down height. It cannot be the slant height. These are not heights. Okay? So, when we're filling into the formula for a triangle, area equals 1/2 the base, which in this case is 6, the height, which is 7. So that's area equals 1/2 42. Now, of course, you could put this into the calculator. Area equals 21, we'll say we're still in centimeters, squared. And that's it for our review of the formulas for some of our basic shapes.